Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we're going to talk about kill shelters versus non-kill shelters. Immediately from the jump, I know your blood pressure was rising whenever I said kill shelters, and that's normal. That's the normal response from so many people. And I do think it's important to understand that, unfortunately, there's a time and a place for kill shelters. So let's talk about it. A kill shelter will have a euthanasia date for their dogs. And that's very different depending on where you go. It might be a week, kind of rare. It might be 2 weeks, might be a month. It might be flexible. It might be based on a number of criteria where they move certain dogs up according to particular factors, okay? Versus a non-kill shelter, they ordinarily do not euthanize unless the dog is critically ill to the point of, they're essentially terminal, or if the dog is aggressive and the dog has maybe attacked a few of the kennel techs. So in a perfect world, we would have non-kill shelters. In a perfect world, we wouldn't even have shelters. Okay, let's start with that. But the world's not perfect. So we love non-kill shelters, right? We love for them to be able to house the dogs, take care of the dogs for the longevity that they need until that dog finds a forever home. However, that is not always a realistic picture. And that's where kill shelters come in. So the people who work at these shelters don't want to see these dogs euthanized. They don't want that to be part of their job. It is simply a reality. If a shelter can only hold 30 or 40 dogs, and let's say they have 100 or 120, and just to let you know, that's truly happening everywhere right now. So let's say you're at double, triple, quadruple your capacity. At some point in time, you do have to make some room for some of the other dogs. You have to bear in mind the health of these dogs, their physical well-being, their mental well-being. There are so many dogs that once they're in the shelter for so long, they're past the point of rehabilitation. There's a number of terms for that. We won't really get into that today, but there does become a tipping point for so many dogs where they've been in the shelter for so long, they kind of go stir crazy. They forget or don't want to interact with humans anymore. They're not great with other dogs anymore. And then, you got to think about their quality of life. So while I would never sit here and say that kill shelters are a great option, I will tell you that that is just simply the reality. And if you do not like a kill shelter, do something about it. And here's what I'm going to say about this. So many people are like, well, I'm not going there. That's a kill shelter. I would never support them. That's a kill shelter. Well, guess what? You're doing those dogs a disservice. When you refuse to go in and take a look at any of those dogs, to adopt those dogs, to take them for walks, to give them donations, you're just moving their date up even further. And I don't think people understand that. Also, when you rescue from a kill shelter, you're making space for that next dog. Maybe you're buying a dog more time. So just because a shelter does have a euthanasia rate or date that they set, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat them the same as you would a non-kill shelter. And I think right now there's just so many shelters, they do not have the resources to be at 4 times their capacity. They don't have the money for staffing, let alone the people to actually staff. They don't have the money for food, for vet care. They're just not funded well enough to have the dogs sit in those kennels for an unascertainable amount of time. And like I said about the employees, those employees do not want to put those dogs down. They don't want to see those dogs euthanized. And that's part of their day to day, which makes it difficult to even keep employees. So again, there we go back to the resources. So I think it's important to kind of open your eyes as to why these kill shelters exist, why they are indeed labeled a kill shelter. And, I wish we had a different term for it because it does just sound so negative and so derogatory. But I think there needs to be a paradigm shift. And I truly think we need to revisit how we think about, how we talk about, how we look at these particular shelters. What can we do to change it? And that's what I'm saying here. If you don't like it, be the change. Whether that means you're going in and adopting a dog, you are fostering dogs. Maybe you're helping facilitate more fosters, more adopters. You're sharing the dogs on social media. You're taking in donations of old linens, towels. You're taking in dog treats. You're going in, you're helping walk the dogs. So try to be the change that you want to see. If you don't like what a kill shelter's doing, try to effectuate a change. So I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. I know that the topic of kill shelters is not a happy topic, not a pleasant topic, but it is the reality that we live in at this current day and age. So once again, thanks for listening. Make sure you guys subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.